For this next session, fueling equity in communities requires collaboration, consensus building, and community participation. But there's also an inarguable bottom line. There is, and that bottom line would be funding. Many Americans and communities with few resources find their dreams and their ambitions to improve their lives and the economic well-being of their families stifled because they simply cannot access the funding needed to start a new business, to buy a home, to do so many different things. So that's why we're privileged today to be joined by Angie Main. Angie is the Executive Director for NACDC Financial Services. It's a Native Community Development Financial Institution, CDFI. So we've heard several of our speakers so far talk about the role of CDFIs. So we're really grateful to have someone come and talk about their program. It's located in Browning, Montana, and it provides training, technical assistance, and capital access to the 8 Montana tribal communities. And since 2011, the organization has fundraised approximately $40 million in lending and operating capital, so that's quite impressive. Angie is joined by Gary and Susan Racine. They are co-owners of the Big Sky Café in Cut Bank, Montana. Gary and Susan are going to share their story of identifying their dream of owning a business and how it seemed impossible before they found NACDC. So it's my pleasure to introduce you all to Angie, and I'm going to let her take it away to talk about her program.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Montana. Welcome to Montana Indian Country. I guess you're going to see more of it tomorrow when you go on your tour, but you'll be going north. We're just over the mountain on the Blackfeet Reservation, but and I imagine this totally different. I'm glad that it's a little more intimate. So, I'm gonna. My name is Angie Main. I'm actually an enrolled member of the Grovant tribe on the Fort Belknap Reservation. I was raised on the Fort Belknap Reservation. I went to work in 2005 for a really famous Native American woman. I don't know if you've heard of Eloise Cabell. Eloise Cabell fought the government in a civil case and won. She defeated the federal government over the mismanagement of funds that were coming to individual Indian accounts. And so as a result, there are several programs that have come from her civil case. So I went to work for her in 2005, and she was still at that time fighting the case. So we were doing a lot of technical assistance and training for business throughout Montana and Idaho. And she said, well, we need a loan fund. So she said, and we have another individual that works with me closely. Her name is Patty Gobert, and she was the branch manager for the Native American Bank. So she came to work for us, and so then we, developed all of the organizational documents, went out and did some fundraising, and finally in 2010 we became incorporated in the state of Montana, and in 2012 we became we didn't know what a CDFI was in the first place, but we found out that if we applied for certification through the U.S. Department of Treasury, then we would be able to access funding that is available to CDFIs across the nation. There's 70 native CDFIs. We are located in Montana, again on the Blackfeet Reservation, but our service area is Native Americans throughout Montana. So we have our loan products are small dollar. Those are small $1,500 loans for 12 months at 12%, and that evolved because of the Eloise Cabell case, the land buyback, where before when individuals needed funding, they would go to the credit department on the reservation and be able to get small amounts of funding, and then use their land as their land leases as to pay back those loans. But when those individuals started selling those portions of land, that was no longer available to them. So we decided, well, we got to do something. We got to do something for these individuals who need school clothes, who need Easter clothes, who need Christmas money. So we started our small dollar program, and actually we probably have right now, we have close to 449 loans right now through our small dollar program. Consumer loans, business, ag, artist line of credit, and home loans. We do have a credit builder program that's not here, and credit builder is probably one of our biggest products too, because our small dollar program is certified through the Credit Bureau Alliance. And so our credit builder programs have a lot, that's still considered a small dollar program. So we have a certified program just for all of our credit builder and small dollar lending. We started our home loans in 2017 because we knew that we were never going to be a sustainable organization just doing small business and consumer credit builder lending. So our board of directors decided that we needed to have larger loans with longer terms, and so we started our home lending. We've grown from 3 staff in 2011. Actually, we're up to 16 right now, and then we've deployed close to $23 million since 2011 to actually the end of 2023. Those are some of my staff. Oh, then Gary and Sue are up there. We actually are part of what we're calling the Mountain Plains Native CDFI Coalition. There's 9 members from Montana, Wyoming, and South Dakota. And we came together just before COVID because we wanted to see how we were all doing going through COVID. Okay, are we, do we have enough resources? Are we going to have to shut down? I mean, all of this stuff. So we started, I think, in June of 2019, and we actually formed as a coalition probably in 2020, and so. Our target markets, of course, Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota, North Dakota. Our leadership, 8 of our executive directors are women. Out of 10, 2 are men. And I guess we had an opportunity to apply for the Build Back Better program through Biden's administration. And of course, we thought it was a long shot to get $45 million. So we did apply. We actually received word that out of 576 applications, 21 were awarded, and we were luckily one of those awardees. And so under that project, there's 5 different projects. Project 1 is storytelling. The successes, all of our successes are collective success stories. Mm-hmm. And 2 is a project that we lead. NACDC Financial Services leads Project 2. It's workforce and professional development, and it's to build a pool of individuals in our Native communities so that we have individuals who can fill positions within our Native CDFIs, within the banks, local banks, and just throughout the finance industry. So we're working on that right now. We're working with tribal colleges to try to develop this curriculum, and we hope to actually roll it out next fall. So we're hoping that our our finance, or we're building our finance industry through this workforce and professional development. So, and there's a talks, and then project 3 is we developed our own CDC. It's a Mountain Plains CDC, and it's actually for shared services. So this curriculum that we have, that will go to the Mountain Plains CDC, and it'll be a shared service through 2 Native CDFIs throughout the nation. Project 4 is an innovation center located on the Crow Reservation. It's has business incubators, office space. I think they're even putting a store in there, and that's going to be a big project. They've already broke ground. They have the funding for it, so they're in the process right now of building the building. And then the biggest one was Project 5. That's a revolving loan fund. We've received, well, the whole award was $45 million. One of the biggest awards ever granted to Native CDFIs throughout the nation. It actually is more than we, it's like around three times more than we received through the Department of Treasury CDFI NACA program. So with this 45 million, 25 million of it was for a revolving loan fund. And each of the 9 Native CDFIs, we have allocations, and I think they're around 2 million in the beginning. We've already gone through our allocation, so that just speaks to the need for business development on the reservations. And so, let me see. So, but what we really wanted to visit about was myth busting. We've been doing a lot of that with our Native CDFIs, actually as a collective too, because we're working in Indian country where we work with our Native people, and we do business lending, business technical assistance, business training. But what the biggest myth that is out there, I guess, is that you can't use trust land as collateral, which is the biggest myth ever, because you can. Native CDFI, we all are doing pretty much home lending now, probably all 9 of us in some way or another. Some are doing more than others, but we are taking these this trust land. There's a process. We're in those communities. We grew up with those communities. When Native Americans come into our offices, they're working with Native Americans, and so we know how to work through the process of the tribal court system, the land department, and through the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And I know that's another myth is that the Bureau of Indian Affairs, it takes them forever, 2 to 5 years to try to get what they call a TSR, a title search record report. And it tells, all the land and all the land that the people own. But we can take that TSR, we can work with the Bureau of Indian Affairs all the way up to the area office, which is located in Billings, Montana. And we can do a lien. We can put a lien on those parcels of land that are being used as collateral. We have right now, close, I think, probably 77, 78 home loans right now. And probably around close to 8 million. And 95% of those are collateralized with trust land. So we're dispelling those myths. And this is, talking about the broken systems that is created, I guess, in the mainstream. These are the percentage of our communities living in poverty. In a national level, it's 11%. On Native Americans, it's 39%. The racial wealth gap, that's another thing that we're really trying to close, is that racial wealth gap. We're trying to work with mainstream finance industry so that, you know, they will invest in us. They can trust us. Actually, trust being the biggest word is because right now there's not a whole lot of trust actually between, you know, Native American communities and mainstream institutions, and vice versa. I mean, it's reciprocal. And so we're really trying to work through that too, is I guess closing that racial wealth gap. Whereas right now, you know, for every dollar of that's white, only 8 cents is Native American. And then our medium household incomes is around 60. On the reservations, it's 35,000. And then just a lot of preconceived notions about sovereign immunity, jurisdictional differences. Sovereign immunity, I guess, is, I mean, we really work with our tribes. We really work in a society that, you know, is really proud of their sovereign immunity and the fact that, you know, they have their own tribal governments. They have their own legal systems, and so we are there to work through those systems. Tribal courts, they operate differently. There's a lot to be said about tribal court systems, but it's there, and it's a system that, you know, we as lenders have to work through. So uniform commercial codes, there are, especially those reservations that have banks. The Blackfeet Reservation has Native American banks, so we have to have a uniform commercial code, so we do have that. And then, you know, we are mitigators of risk, and that's probably, you know, the primary reason that we're good investments is because we take a lot of the risk on. We work in those communities. We know those people. I mean, when, you know, it comes time to you know, make a payment or whatever. I mean, we see them at football games. We see them at basketball games. We can say, hey, you got a payment coming up, you know. So and that's not just, you know, on the Blackfeet Reservation. I mean, you know, it's really a tribal community in Montana where we do know people from the Fort Belknap, from the Crow Reservation. I mean, we all work together, we all know each other, and a lot of our loan committees, we have a representative from each one of those communities because they know all those people in those communities, and they can help us to, you know, on collections. But the good thing is, this says our current default rate is 2.22, but, you know, that's collective through all the 9 native CDFIs. Ours, since 2011, is 0%. We still maintain a 0% default rate. And another myth buster, Indians don't pay their bills. Yeah, they do. We have a 0% default rate. So yes, another myth. So there's so much misconceptions, you know, and stereotypical perceptions that, and, you know, the biggest one is, you know, being able to educate. And I love being in these kinds of forums. I was just actually in one last week in Billings with the Funders Network, talking especially about, you know, that we are busting myths. We are there working and lending in Indian country, and we are collecting on those loans. So trust land, I just mostly talked a lot about that you know, these and yeah, when you think of collateral, it's a trust land cannot be sold, transferred, or encumbered without federal approval. Well, you know, that's a lot of those are just, you know, those are all myths. I mean, we use them as collateral all the time, and we don't have to get federal approval every time a loan goes through. We do have to work with, of course, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and those loans are perfected within the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So that's probably the closest any federal organization has to approve the collateral. And this map here, I mean, this is on the Rosebud Reservation, but many of our reservations are checkerboarded, meaning that some I think probably Fort Peck, and then you're going to be at Salish and Kootenai tomorrow. Those are all checkerboarded, meaning the tribe owns some portions of the land, individual tribal members own land, and then the rest is owned by non-Indians, and which a lot of the tribes are really trying to buy back a lot of that land to build up back their land bases. On the Fort Belknap Reservation, we have probably close to 1 million acres, and 98% of that is tribally owned or individual tribal member owned. So that's what we're most proud of, is the fact that we own most of our land. It's not checkerboarded like you see with some of the reservations. So we've our mortgage, we're doing successful mortgages on trust land, two of the biggest being us. On the Blackfeet Reservation, we've had 2 more loans since in the last few days. So, so we are at 78. Four Bands Community Fund on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation. They're another native CDFI that are doing mortgages. They have 78 mortgages with almost 8 million. And actually our pipelines too. Our pipelines get to be like right now, our pipeline is like around 7 million. And that's another reason that, we need investors, we need to work with banks, we need those relationships, those partnerships, is so that we can, meet the demand that's out there for home loan, business loans. And then the myth busting. When you make an investment into our organization, you not only invest in an organization, you invest in a community, because your funding when it comes to into our organization, it goes back into a business or a home. And that's that if we had investors that would come in and invest, and Kaya was talking this morning about earlier about the housing stock and how the housing stock is really limited. And if we would have the trust of investors to invest in Indian country, invest in native CDFIs, I mean, we could develop those. We can develop them. We know the systems. We're there. We can work through them. Give us 20 million, whatever it takes to try to build, our own homes, develop our own homes. So we're hoping, actually, maybe a story will come out of this where we can, be able to attract more investors. So let me see. These are just quotes from various Lakota at Four Bands. She's the executive director at Four Bands. Charitina Plenty Doors is on the Crow Reservation. Sharon Small, she's the ED at People's Partner on Northern Cheyenne Reservation. And then Bill Stoddard, we have investors. When we put together those applications to the Build Back Better program, there was a 20% match. And so, in order to match, 45 million, the 20% match was huge. And so we were able to round up some funders, Northwest Area Foundation, and some other foundations, but some of the private organizations too even stepped up. So we are actually ready to, or we did meet the 20% match. But we had to, and that's another thing that we're doing, is trying to change the systems. We're trying to change how we work with the government, and the fact that, okay, what you have put out there, in the, for forms and reporting, all of that. It's not consistent with how you work in Indian country. And so we've, especially with 20% matches. So we did, work with EDA, and we got the 20% match waived. So the investments that we made, or that funders made in with the 20%, we were able to use that for other innovation projects that that the other native CDFIs are working on. So yeah, we're changing systems and myth busting. These are just our growth rates as a coalition. And then you have to remember, this is collectively through 9 organizations. We get a 60% growth rate for the clients that we've served. We have a 49% growth rate for the coalition for full-time equivalent employees. We have a 475% growth rate of client jobs retained, 380% growth rate of client jobs created, 422% growth of dollars closed in loans, 213% growth in CDFI assets, and 292 growth rate for our total portfolio size. So, I mean, those are pretty awesome numbers. And that's actually just within, 2 years. These numbers were the end of 2023, but since then we've been, really using that that revolving loan fund a lot. So our numbers are going to grow even more than these. One of the big things that, of course, we're working on is workforce development, and I talked about how we're trying to grow pools of individuals so that when we're onboarding, there's people with experience, people that are younger, people that know what a native CDFI is, know what a nonprofit is. So we're really trying to work through this curriculum so that we can make it available and make onboarding easier for us. But another workforce that we're currently working on too is we're part of the Native CDFI network, and they just received $40 million under the green energy program. Under Biden's green energy program, they received $400 million. So so all of those native CDFIs that signed on to the application they submitted are receiving a grant of $5 million. But when it comes to us, we have to lend it. We have to lend it for green energy projects, I guess. And then we're receiving another $500,000 for technical assistance. And actually, I'm going to Omaha tomorrow because we're going to be talking about those subawards and how those are coming to each one of us. But that, it's a typical government program. You put all this money out the door, and then you have to, number one, we're going to have to do an assessment. We'll assess the reservations in Montana to see what the needs are, to see how we're going to be able to lend. Maybe it's kind of looking, it'll be mostly housing improvement, solar systems, things like that. But another thing is, okay, there's no tribal codes. There's no tribal codes that regulate how you do clean energy projects, for inspections or any of that. So we're going to have to be developing tribal codes just for that. And then the workforce, we don't have a workforce that's going to be able to install solar systems. Some reservations do, but we don't. So we're going to have to work through that whole process of doing more workforce development for clean energy or energy efficiency, whatever. So, it's always, it's always something. So, but but what I hope, that comes out of this is the fact that, that we need investments. We need investors to come into Indian country. We need investors to trust us because we have all the same needs as everybody out in the mainstream world. We just have more limited resources. So Native CDFIs are in a position right now to be able to help to meet those needs, and an investment into us means that the investors get to take credit for all of those, or all of those projects that develop. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to two of our loan fund clients that have actually been with us for a few years, and they're going to talk about some of the challenges they had trying to obtain financing from the mainstream, and how they actually ended up coming to NACDC for assistance. So.
Hi. I was introduced as Gary Racine. I think it was around 2014 or so. I worked for our tribe, the Blackfeet, and the tribe was going through some issues, and we had a split government, and politics is always a play in everything we do in life, I think. And so I had been investing money into my 401k each payday, and so the end result is that I got laid off from my job with the tribe. Well, I was at home and reading through the paper, and I seen this business in Café, which is just a border town right off the reservation, and it was just a small, fast food little joint, and so I talked to my wife, and I said, maybe we should look at this. Number one is I didn't know nothing about food business, never done it before. So she said, well, yeah, take a look at it. So I went around, and I went to different banks off the reservation, different communities. And the loan was for like $60,000. And every bank that I went to basically turned me down, and it was, and they say that it was because there was not property attached to the business. It was just the business alone. It was because the business was inside of a mall in Cutbank. We owned the business, but we didn't own the property. So, and I had talked to Patty Gobert at one time before that, and I don't even remember where it was at, but I was going to Browning about this time of the year in October. I was going up for a doctor's appointment, and I got a call from the last bank, and they said, "Oh, sorry, Mr. Racine, we can't help you." They gave me the song and dance about not having, I guess, real property collateral and everything. And so I thanked them, and I thought, well, geez, now what are we going to do, And so I went up to my appointment, and I was walking in or out of the hospital, and Patty Gobert was sitting there. And she said, "Hey, Gary," she said, "how you doing?" I said, "I'm fine." She said, "Did you ever get anything worked out on your loan for that business?" I said, "No, matter of fact," I said, "I just, on my way up here this morning," I said, "I got that last call, and they turned me down." I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, why don't you come and stop by and visit with us? And we'll see what we can do." So I did. So I said, okay. So I went up and met with them, and they started working together. We started working together with NACDC, and it probably took, 6-8 months, and we finally got approved for that loan, and which was really, really nice. And I can't say it, and I'm sure my credit wasn't that great anyway, but and so it was kind of like starting all over. And then they came through for us, and they got us the loan, and so we bought the business. And like I said, I never knew nothing about any food industry business at all, and so but I just jumped in it feet first along with my wife, and I remember the first day that we were there, we got the keys and stuff, and we were so happy, and because we got this business. So and I think after the first day, I think we bought a box of cereal, and we ate dinner at that snack shop, is what we called it. That was our dinner. So and we we were learning the hard way, I guess, and taking a long way around. But in the end, it turned out to be a good little business. It didn't make a lot of money, but it served the community, and it served the people, and people from Browning and all over Indian country. Just like today, for example, we walked over to this student building over here to get something to drink. We're standing in line getting ready to pay, and I turn around and there's this young guy standing there. And I thought, I know this young guy. And I told him, I said, I can't remember your name. He said, I know you. He said, I'm Ivan Redhorn. I said, oh yeah, I know. He said, how are you doing? I shook his hand. But see, that's just it. In Indian country, it don't matter where you go sometimes. You run into people. That you might know. I was back in Washington, D.C. one time, and these people knew this lady from home. We were up in Chinatown in Washington, D.C. So small world, big world, but small. But anyway, so we worked the snack shop, and we worked with Patty and Angie on it, and the thing about it, and Angie didn't mention it, but that business is located off the reservation. Like I said, it's a border town, and so. There's always sticklers with border town anyway. It don't matter where you're at. It could be, if you're from a city, it could be your next block over, and stuff. So, but anyway, it worked really well, and we serviced a lot of young people, kids, high school kids. That was their go-to place, because we served hot dogs, tacos, nachos, and just fast food stuff. So kids can run in and out of there. And so we learned a lot in that 5 years that we were there. And then. This lady from downtown came to us one day, and she said, I got a business that I want to sell. And we had been talking about it before, and she said, there's another couple that's looking at it too, but I want to give you guys a shot at it, so if you think you can get a loan and try to buy it and stuff. And so we talked about it, and so we got a hold of Angie and Patty again. And we met with them, and my wife was really thinking, they're going to turn us down. They're going to tell us no. We weren't there 10 minutes. Yeah, we'll help you guys. so that was really nice. I mean, it was really nice. And so we took that other leap. We took that other leap to a bigger business, to a regular cafe restaurant style business. And again, we didn't know nothing about that. In my earlier years, I was a cop all my life. So the only thing I knew is arrest people, basically. And I worked with Angie's dad a little bit. He was a cop too. But anyway, so we jumped into that. But this business that we bought, they helped us buy, was really, we had to work it over. And the worst part about it is that it was right during when COVID was hitting. And in 2020, when they shut the country down in end of March, we hadn't heard from them. But in April, they get a hold of us and they say, hey, your loan come through. And well, the country shut down, and we said, and I went to my wife and I said, do we really want to do this? I said, that's a lot of money, and that's a big risk. And she said, well, I think we should do it. I said, okay. So we did it, but we had to do a lot of remodeling to the business. And our health building's over 100 years old. Health inspector, he said, there's no way that anybody could fix this building up, and we proved him wrong. And so, but anyway, from 2020 till now, it's been a hard business. It's nothing easy. We have to work it. We work it every day. We don't work all day. I go in the mornings and open up. She goes in the evening and closes. Besides her, she's got her job on top of it. She still works her full-time job. But the way COVID has changed things with everything in the workforce world out there, it's hard to keep workers. It's hard to keep employees, and nobody seems like they want to work anymore. And so we struggle every day. We struggle every day with that, and we get frustrated, and I know she does. But if it wasn't for NACDC, I don't know where we'd be at today. It was them that brought us out. it's them that got us to where we're at today. And when Angie got a hold of my wife and said, would you guys like to come over and be a part of this presentation? I had no
couldn't say
idea.
no.
I didn't even know what it was about. I just said yes. And the reason I said that is because, I go back to when I was trying to get a loan to buy something, and everybody was turning me down. And so I thought, well, this is just a little way to repay them or help them promote the NACDC and what they do for people in Indian country and all over the United States. So if we can help in that aspect, then I feel like, well, we did our part.
Right.
And and I look at it and I even tell my kids, go through. Well, our daughter did, because that other business that we had, she in turn, we got her hooked up with Patty Natch, and she ended up buying her other business, and she's at home. We bought it. She bought another building, and so she's operating that building.
She moved the business
She
to a
moved
different
the business
building,
to
so
another
she's not
building.
in that mall
And
anymore.
so, and
Better-
so, and she was, I think, 24 when she did that.
Yeah.
And so, so she works we help her, and she helps us though. And so, so we have nothing but great things to say about NACDC and how they help, and also that, this myth that, they won't help you because you're not on the reservation and stuff.
Yeah,
Well,
that's another myth.
That's another myth. We've proven to them that they help off the reservation,
I want to bring Susan in because, there was such a critical moment when he was laid off from his job, and, you as a family probably deciding what do we do and how do we move forward. Your decision to sign on with this idea of starting this new business, and you'd never run a business before. I want you to speak to what it meant to you to think that, well, if we do this business, we'll be able to take care of our family, we'll be able to do this. Because I want to amplify the role of women entrepreneurs and how women in this conversation. So tell us about where your head was in terms of him coming in and saying, let's do a new business.
Yeah, well, he has always loved to cook, so I thought he'll be great at this, He loves to make soup. That was it's kind of a soup and sandwich snack, So I just thought, whatever he wants to do, I just believe he can do it, And I've worked as an administrative assistant, bookkeeper for several different businesses through the years, and knew somewhat about how to do small business taxes and things like that. So I was confident we could handle that, and I guess I just had confidence in his ability to run the place. He's a people person anyway, so I knew it would work.
As you look around your community, though, think about other women that you know. Or have they taken advantage of NACDC, and what does it mean to have that access when everybody else turns you down?
It really meant a lot to us, and something he left out was in 2015. We had to wait for their funding to come through. That was part of it. They were still in the process of getting their funding, and that was part of why we had to wait so long. But as soon as they had it, it was ours. But again, like our daughter is one of the only other women business owners in town, really. And she, like I say, didn't have any problem getting funded through them. Again, being in a border town, it was kind of iffy at first, but working with them was easy, and they had no problem,
When I hear these stories, I often think of the meme of the children standing at a fence looking over, and so the white child is on a box and is able to peer over, and the brown child is on the ground and no way to get to the top and no way to see what's over the top. What I want you to think about CDFIs as being that box that allows so many communities to have a fighting chance. So much of the anti-DEI and anti-equity conversations that we hear of late deal with the fact, or they sort of try to put forth, we're post-racial and everybody's okay, and why are we still talking about this stuff, and it's not necessary. But this is powerful evidence of the fact that across America, there are millions of people who are literally locked out of the conversation. There's just no way they could go to Bank of America or Wells Fargo or any of the community institutions to get funding half of what they got, a tenth of what they got. There's just no way. You're automatically locked out. So again, when you go back to your communities, think about this. Are there any questions? Let's open it up for questions. Where's the mic?
Can I just say one thing before you?
Sure.
Just when he's talking about something about racial, this is kind of funny. It is funny to me anyway. But anyway, one day my wife was working at the snack shop, the original one, and I'm somewhere, and I come back, and she tells me, she said, hey, this guy, she told me who he was, and she said I was being racial to him. I said, being racial to him? She said, yeah. I said, did you tell him who he was married to? And this guy, he knows me. He knows me very well. He's just from another, but he didn't know my wife, see? So he told her that she's being racial. And I said, well, you should have told him who he's married to, and I would have took care of it. I said, I'm an Indian, he's an Indian, and you're married to an Indian. I said, you should have told him that, but just, when you talk about racial, so that's just it. Sometimes people just jump to that racial thing right away. And we experienced that at our other cafe, but, we both can work it because it's diverse. It's really diverse, and it works good with both of us being there, So it really makes a better business partner. Yeah.
Who has the mic?
Hi. My name's Amanda Gogi. I cover New Hampshire for the Boston Globe, and really interested in the work that you were talking about, Angie. I'm wondering, when you're asking for investment, just sort of the nuts and bolts, so you're going out and trying to raise those funds, attract investors. Do they invest directly into your organization, and then you are charged with sort of redistributing those funds, and you're able to use the 12% sort of to build that initial wealth that they're investing into the community? And then sort of a second follow-up is, I'm just curious if you could talk a little bit more, we're already kind of having the conversation about systemic racism and some of the sort of prejudices. Your presentation is obviously focused on myth busting, and I'm wondering if these are also the conversations you're having to have with investors, and you're having to do that work of educating them about why this is a good investment for them to make, and you don't have to be afraid of X, Y, and Z that you covered in your presentation. Just a little bit more about how you kind of navigate that process and what you're up against.
We do have investors. Northwest Area Foundation has always been a big investor, and they used to invest just like in PRIs, you call them program-related investments. So they would lend for small business, and they asked me, well, do you need money for small business? I said, no, I need money for housing. We got this big grant for the revolving loan fund that covers business, and I really need this housing money. And we're supposed to, we can't advertise. We don't advertise because we have limited access to these resources. And so they did. They turned their whole focus around, and they said, okay, we're going to give our first housing PRI out. But we negotiate those investments, though. Some of them are like at 1%. Some are at 3.5. I don't think we have an investment over 3.5. But our spread, because we're serving, low-income communities, they our spread for our home loans. Okay, if you give me a 3.5% loan, my spread is only 1%, and I know a lot of the native CDFIs even were raising their interest rates for home lending, but I don't want to do that because we know these communities, we know what they can afford or what they can't afford. And so, I'm willing to just keep that 1% spread, but it's really good to have like a 1% investment, then my spread is 3.5% to help cover training, technical assistance, all the overhead, all that stuff. And and then, there's different pots of money too, different investments. Credit Bureau Alliance, that we get a lot of investments for them for a small dollar. And that's, same thing. I think they charge 2% for like 5 years or something. So those are all negotiable. But yeah, we do borrow. I think we have probably about 12 investors right now, close to 6 million, which, I mean, when your pipeline is 7 million, it's kind of a drop in a bucket. And so that's why, we're just really encouraging investments that are, hopefully larger. And the second part of your question about,
I guess I was trying to ask about the sort of story that you're telling and the pitch that you're making to try to overcome some of the myths that you addressed.
We have partners, of course. We have partners with the Native CDFI network, and which is most of the Native CDFIs throughout the nation. And then we have OESTA, the OESTA Fund. So they really helped us to build our capacity and also made investments so that we can relend. So they're doing a lot of advocacy work. I mean, I can do advocacy, at this, at a kind of a smaller level, but they work with the federal government. They're working with all the government programs and, trying to get them to realize that, we are safe investments. You can trust these people, but you have to work the way they work. We can't work the way they want us to work anymore. We can't, because it's just historically, it's never worked where the government or whoever comes in and, okay, you have to do it this way. It's never worked. So now we're trying to say, okay, this is how we work. This is common to us. This is how we work. And, we'd love to be a partner. We'd love to have you invest. But, let us work the way we work. Let us work through those processes. Let us work with the tribal court. Let us work on our own collections. Let us, let us work with the Bureau of Indian Affairs and dispel the myth that it takes 2 to 5 years, to get a TSR. Let us work through all of that for you so that you don't have to. You just make that investment. Let us worry about it. And then we because we have that 0% default rate, that we're going to be able to get your money out the door. So, did I answer your question?
Hi, my name is Polly Dinetclaw. I'm a citizen of the Navajo Nation, and I'm originally from Gallup, New Mexico. But I currently live in Washington, D.C., and I work for ICT, formerly known as Indian Country Today. And so I sort of have a more, one of the things, because I actually did a financial literacy series when I used to work at Navajo Times, and so I talked about like APR rates and like all these things for my community because I was like, I don't know this, so clearly people in my community don't know this. And so I'm curious to know, like, what are some of the issues that you have in the communities that you work with when it comes to like financial literacy? Because there are a lot of people in my community who don't have bank accounts. Like, they go to the pawn shop and cash their checks, and if they need loans, they go to the pawn shop, like they go to the trading post. And so it's a really big challenge to like get people to like open a bank account and like build your credit, and this is how you apply for a loan, and this is what an APR rate is. And so I'm curious about how that has been.
Well, in 1986, a very wise woman, Eloise Cabell, her and a group of teachers, they were getting per cap funding, huge amounts, and so they wanted to be able to have these kids that were, when they turned 18, and all this interest builds up, and how are you going to go out and spend it, wisely? And so they started with it's called the Blackfeet Mini Bank Program, which we carry on today. And it's a youth savings account. We are the custodians of those accounts, and we invest. They have savings accounts through the Native American Bank, and so and they have these little. We have banking hours. We work with 6 schools on the reservation right now, and I have an individual who goes into the school, and he has banking hours, and you have these kids who go through all of the careers, the different careers, like opening an account, taking deposits, and so we have that program, and it's carried on from 1986, and it's a great program, and that helps us a lot too. And I see that even from the Fort Belknap Reservation. When I went to work on the Blackfeet Reservation, I noticed that they were just financially more astute, because they take those kids into the bank, they have those relationships with the bank, they can go in and withdraw money if they want to, and so there's so what it does is it builds that trust for those kids, and to be able to trust to go into the bank and be treated as an individual who has money in the bank, so yeah, we that's another program we have to raise money for. but yeah, so it's we've carried on, and it's still working great. Actually, some of those students have worked in the bank too, in the Native American Bank on the Blackfeet Reservation, because we go back to 1986. How many years ago was that? And so now you have these kids. They go. They can actually apply. Some of these career lessons that they learned through this program. So
We could probably take one more question if there's a urgent one. If not, let's go back to Nina, and that'll be our last question.
Hello, I'm Nina Joss with Colorado Community Media. And this is a question that comes from, I have very little knowledge about Native communities, so I'm learning a lot this week. I'm curious, for businesses like yours, you said it's located off the reservation, right? So in that context, in terms of the legal rules regarding a business, like licensing and inspections and things like that, what governmental entities does that go through? Is it the tribal government or the state? Okay.
We follow the county, the city,
State.
and state regulations on everything.
And if you were on the reservation property, then it would be through the tribal
And
government?
Go through the tribe. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's and you probably heard her talk about jurisdiction, and stuff like that, but it's just a technical thing. But as long as you can work through that hoops and go through jump through the hoops, it's fine. We, for an example I'll give you is like the state health inspector. He's got to come in once a year and inspect our county sanitarian. He's got to come in and inspect our food and our fridges and everything, and make sure everything's in working order. And he's got to give you a clean bill of health. Whereas on the reservation, I think it's IHS that does it. They have their own sanitarian that comes in, and they do the inspections for that. So so it's totally different. And sometimes I think, well, if I was just on the reservation, I could do this. And then I think, no, if I'm better off here, it's got its pros and cons, but it's fine.
So,
I'm sorry.
sorry, I was just going to ask one more follow-up. So for businesses like yours, I know Angie described the myth of the concern that defaults would have to go through the tribal judicial system. But for businesses like yours, that's extra myth, right?
Yeah,
because
technically, like when you talk jurisdiction, if we was to default and we fought them, they'd probably have to take us into the city or the county court, and unless the county says no, take it back to the reservation. So really technical, very technical.
Show of hands, how many of you know of a CDFI in your communities? That's good. I want to challenge all of you to go back and look around, particularly if you find one that is doing financial literacy work, for example, for young people, And that brings us back to another thing we talked about earlier, which is children aging out of foster care and their financial literacy and what they know. All of these themes, as you'll see and you've already started to see, they're interwoven. It all is a part of how a community develops and well-being, who has access to the things that make a healthy community. And so this conversation is foundational for me in that we've heard from not only someone who literally is an engine in communities to make these connections happen, but we've heard the first person testimony of people who benefited from a CDFI and even their child. They're able to pass it on to the next generation. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Angie Main and Gary and Susan Racine for joining us for this conversation.